Encourage you guys to participate and pitch in. And if you've seen the message that might have just come on already on your screen, is that we're recording the webinar as well, which is something we've done in the previous ones too, just to make sure that whoever's not managed to be on it live can still take advantage of the information, and we can share with the rest of the GSU participants as well. But as a general rule, just do feel free to type in at any point if you have any questions, and we'll pick them up. And we'll just try between us to cover the material. But yeah, if you have any examples that you feel others could benefit from, then please share. Like, that's the whole point of this. So this is Katie. Do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Ellie, we've met before because I came to do your GSU audit last year. I'm just going to be part of this webinar today to go through some of the campaigns that we're running at NUS, and maybe give you a bit of insight about how they're going and how successful they are, to maybe help you with your campaigns of what you're deciding to work on for this GSU year.
Cool. I think that's pretty much everything before we start. Well, hopefully we'll learn quite a bit from today, but we've only really have like 50 minutes or so. So do follow up with us afterwards if there's anything we've missed and you think you were really wondering about. But we'll just talk a little bit generally about campaigns and the idea of organizing first. And then actually we'll talk quite specifically around the criteria that's listed in the GSU toolkit. So we'll just let you guys know exactly what not exactly, but really what the scoring guidelines would be, and what the evidence that we're looking for is for each one of those relevant actions. And then, like Katie was saying, we're just going to share a lot of examples from what other GSU participants did last year that we found to be a great addition, and also, our own NUS campaigns. That's really what we're going to do today. And also, hi, David. So, I mean, obviously at this point, we'd kind of want you guys to have a think, or maybe even just if you have time, do start typing in what you think campaigning is, really the definition of the term, and what it means for you as a student union to, take part in these activities. So if you had like one buzzword to attach to the word campaigning, what would it be? And please type it in. If not, that's also okay. We'll move on, and I guess we'll just tell you. But over 3 people are typing, so this is great. They give us, actions, taking actions. Very much about change. So yeah, exactly. I mean, I would definitely agree that that's the key word there. And the way that you could definitely make sure you reach that change is by taking action. So it is very results driven. And I think this is something that the GSU Toolkit in particular is trying to make very clear as well. So when we look through the criteria, I think that will become quite obvious. But also, I guess, the organizing part is the whole idea of getting through to making change. So we'll look at what you need in order to become a positive change-making group. So if that means organizing your team in a really smart and efficient way, if that means setting relevant and measurable and achievable aims, the toolkit will put you in a really good place to achieve what you want to achieve. And here I was just having a look at some examples that will hopefully motivate you, but that will hopefully inspire you as well to organize on your own campuses and lead really successful student-driven campaigns. But this is really all about reminding you that there's a lot of power in the collective movement, and there's definitely a lot of power in the student movement. So do have a lot of faith in building power as a group, and using that power to shift relationships of the current existing power structure. So we'll look at that as well, how you can identify different stakeholders in particular to engage with. And this, will kind of bring it back to the student movement a lot more, so make it a lot more specific and highlight the historical but also contemporary importance of what student activism has managed to achieve. But there's just so many other sides to a student union, and I'm sure all of you will appreciate that, and all of you will have other priorities as well. But this is a bit of a helpful diagram to remind you of all of the different ways in which a student union and the student movement more generally, especially on a local level, can create positive change. And this is something that I suppose I would encourage you to maybe print out and put on your next to your desk and have it in mind, because a campaign really shouldn't be a linear process, but rather a cycle, and it should always run through measuring your progress, your impact so far, just in order to hopefully inform your final results. But again, the reason why I think a lot of you will find the toolkit helpful is that it gives you that kind of platform to follow up on your successes. So I think we've got someone else who's joined us recently, so I just wanted to say hi to Mariam. Hopefully you can hear us just fine. You've not missed out on much yet. We're just going through why it's important to run a campaign, I guess, and why it's good, and we're really well placed in the student movement to do so. But yeah, like I said, all of these 5 steps, hi Mariam, are well traced throughout the toolkit criteria, which we'll go through in a second. Katie, did you want to know anything? No, just fine. Go. Okay, so let's just look at some of the sections in the toolkit. I'll just take a second to open up some notes that I made. So there is 8 or 9 this is a bit of a nightmare. There's 8 or 9 criteria in total in the section that has to do with campaigning and influencing, but I've sort of tried to condense them into 4 main themes. So around what even is the context or the need of your campaign that you've chosen to run this year, how you plan for it, how you set your aims and milestones, what you can do to identify the right stakeholders and maximize your student engagement, and finally, but definitely probably the most important one and often unfortunately overlooked, the monitoring and evaluation. So in terms of the first criteria, which is really what name you gave to your campaign, where did it come from, and what is the context. This is really, really important, and you'll see further on the kind of evidence that we'll be looking for in order to award maximum points. So what we're really keen to see is, how is it an issue for your union to act upon? Why is it that your student union is best placed to act on it? So really, you don't have to think about it in terms of what is the only one key issue. It could be anything from a local to a national to an international issue, but it's just making sure that your union is best placed to act on it. So in that sense, we're looking for evidence which includes research you might have done on the issue. So original research, like a student survey, results of a qualitative or quantitative survey that you've done on your student body. And that is really what we would offer the maximum 4 to 5 points for a campaign that's established through evidence-based decision. So like we said, the results of a survey, for example. So, I mean, all in all, I guess a question you should consider is, do you already have data available to prove the need for your campaign? Should you start thinking as soon as possible, given that it's December, of how you can obtain that data? Or are there maybe a previous attempt that you've done in, last year that you could build upon? So definitely do start from an informed position. So, like I did mention before, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say competing priorities in your student union or in your team per se, but there's definitely a lot of things for you to worry about, and that could range from the time and the capacity you can allocate to the student motivations, to general strategic priorities of the student union, to obviously how much financial investment you can put in it, and so on. But ultimately, I think it all comes back to evidence and really what your student body would like you to act on. That would be the most important thing we look for as auditors when it comes to May time.
And I also think that making sure that you're not just having sustainability as a silo by itself, like maybe sustainability, whatever campaign you're working on, might link into one of your priority campaigns for the SUs, whether it's like a president priority campaign, and you can really link sustainability so broad that you can relink it to one of those campaigns. And I think, again, when we're looking at the campaigns that you're running, and now again from an auditor's point of view, that would be absolutely amazing if we saw that you were linking it into like other things that the SU were doing, and you're not just doing like sustainability as a standalone thing. So linking it into other campaigns that you run, and linking it with your like different president campaigns or anything, or priorities, would be really great as well. So if you can have a think about what's going on at the moment and where you think you can link sustainability in.
I think it also kind of makes things easier for yourself, you know, and not just from a capacity point of view, in that more people will be glad to like join along on the bandwagon, but also that it means you might get a lot more publicity from it if other teams within the student union, or even the larger like sort of campus structures, would be willing to share what you're trying to achieve. So it would definitely make things easier. So yeah, that's really covering the first two criteria. So obviously, like I said, it's an open invitation for you guys to send us any questions you have. But are there any kind of immediate curiosities that spring from that so far?
Or maybe you've already started your campaign for the year, and if you could tell us what it is as well, that would be really helpful, and we can make it a bit more specific to some of the campaigns you're working on. And also we'd like to know as well, just so we know what you're doing.
Or just because we're nosy. Yeah. But that would definitely help us, or to give you examples that would be even more practical. So yeah, do feel free to share what you're already considering to do, or if you're struggling perhaps with, if I identify like a particular challenge and, I don't know, surveying your student body, let us know. We can see how others have gone about it and maybe find an opportunity. So Ellie's trying to tell us that there's not just one, but two ideas in the pipeline at the moment. And they are still trying to decide which one would be the main one, and which they would be able to put in this section of the toolkit. So good luck, Ellie. Hopefully you'll narrow it down sooner rather than later, and you can start on your plan, which is actually what we're going to talk about next. And
maybe that what Laura's just gone through is really helpful. So do you have any evidence already on either one of those campaigns, which you're like, oh yes, the student body wants this, or oh, we don't already have this, maybe this will be more of a priority?
Yeah.
So looking at the evidence you already have might be able to help you narrow it down. Yeah. Or even just doing a survey and seeing from that survey which the students prefer or they are leaning towards also might help you narrow it down.
And we'll look at Tom's question as well in the meantime while we go through the planning section, because Tom is wondering whether they can progress on from a concept they've already developed in the previous year and make it bigger this time around. And Mariam is sharing with us that they're working on a paperless campaign, which is something that we'll actually share as a success story from Glasgow Caledonian University, from what they've done last year. Actually, Mariam, if you want to get our contacts at the end, I'm happy to put you in touch with some of the staff who worked on it last year at Glasgow Cali. They've had a pretty successful campaign. So yeah, definitely drop me an email. My details will be at the end, so keep an eye for that. And Tom will definitely get back to you, because I think that's something that we can discuss at more length in the last section of the Q&A. So yeah, do keep sharing with each other, and if you've got any way of emailing yourselves between yourselves directly as well, that'd be fab. And we'll just carry on talking about what writing up a plan according to the milestones and aims you've set up mean. So this would be really a lot of other points that you'll be trying to to catch within really three questions in the section. So yeah, just to give you an idea of some of the questions you might be wanting to think about is what kind of things you will need to achieve to meet your aim. And what are your measures of success? And obviously all of these should be really clear, well-defined aims, really straightforward. You don't need to worry about setting too many of them if that's an issue. You don't really have to worry about making them long at all. The briefer and clearer, the better. I think it just simplifies everything. What you should be really rather focusing on is that they're smart aims. So most importantly, they should be measurable and obviously suitable for your campaign. And we'll talk more about the monitoring and evaluation of it as we go along, because there will be another section specifically for it. But that would be around your aims. So that's part one. And then very much linked to them, you have your milestones, which should be the kind of things and the kind of points along the way that will lead you to achieving the aims you've set. And they should allow you to review your success throughout as well. Not just throughout, but obviously at the end of your initiative. So in that sense, ideally, your milestones will be within the timeline of this academic year, for a lot of reasons, but also for the purpose of the audit. It will make it more obvious for us when we are in a position to ask you, right, what have you actually achieved to meet your aims? If you strive as much as possible to keep it to, say, till end of April or May, and be able to tell us during the audit process how you've met your aims. Obviously, there will be exceptions, and if there is really good reason to let us know, they could definitely stretch beyond. There have been many examples in previous years, but just communications is key, so let us know throughout the process if that's something you'll need to do. So if you were to be aiming high for maximum points, you would be getting between 4 and 8 points, which is the maximum for if you had really specific aims and milestones, which can be monitored and evaluated. So again, just to like clarify and put it in one sentence, you really don't need to worry about your campaign being large or extensive, but really well set out, planned, and impactful. So just concise over quality over quantity. Right. So these are some examples of tools you can use to help you identify some of the aims that you're trying to achieve on your campus. So these are probably some tree analogies that you've seen before. We've definitely shared them before in other webinars, and maybe you've worked with. But just to help you identify, so if you were to switch between them, between your problems and your solutions, how to link the two, and how to use your vision to get to the effects that you're trying to achieve. So have a really good think about what your aims are, because it'll matter a lot. And this finally is, I guess, very informative for you when you have to consider how much time, capacity, financial investment, and so on you have to input in your campaign, and just to think about the impact chain in a way that lets you work out backwards from it. So obviously starting from the impact that you make, so your final kind of aim of change, moving on backwards to what were the outcomes, what were the outputs, what kind of activities you had to plan out to run. So whether that's, things like having a stall to raise signatures for a petition, or having to organize meetings with certain senior management key stakeholders, or anything really that helps you achieve your outcomes, and what the inputs for that would be. So obviously, like I mentioned before, the example would be your own staff time, or your capacity to recruit volunteers, and if there's any I don't know, like freebies or goodies that you have to give out in order to increase your profile. So those are all inputs that you need to carefully consider, but they really should all be informed ultimately by your impact. That's pretty much it, I think. So yeah, do keep asking us if there's anything on this, because this is quite a large section, and don't want to rush it too much, because obviously a plan will be something that is quite scary to a lot of people, because it means carefully assessing, 5 or 6 months in advance exactly what your activities will be. But I think, especially when you have so many other things on your plate, it will make things easier if you have things in the diary, for example, or if you know exactly when your petition will close, or I don't know, that kind of timeline in front of your eyes all the time. So yeah, I would say that's maybe the first part of the campaigning and influencing section of the toolkit. So we're almost there. The plan is probably a big chunk of it. And the following 3 criteria are looking at things like how you like Katie was saying, how you don't work in a silo, I suppose, and how you engage both community leaders and more senior management in your campus, and perhaps other local representatives, to obviously how well your student engagement has done. So if we were to look at that for a second, and the kind of evidence that we'd be requesting for it come the auditing time, in a nutshell, your campaign will be more successful if you can gain support from other stakeholders, as well as commitment from your union overall to back you up on it. So this will include thinking about how you organize your campaign team, but for the purposes of other partners, more, you could call them external partners, or whatever name you want to give them, but they would be key individuals, like that includes really other groups on campuses as well, so other societies that you could pull along to again help raise your profile, other community groups, maybe the local council, even national campaigning groups, which has been really proven quite popular, I think, quite recently with student unions. So what you should really try to map out is, why are they the key stakeholders, and why do you think they should be involved? And again, coming back to kind of quality over quantity, you don't have to worry at all about there being a large number of partners if that's not the suitable way to go for the campaign. But you should definitely try to make sure that every partner has a clear role and a clear involvement, and what they're kind of actioned to help you with. But in terms of submitting evidence to us when it comes to that, some examples could be that you'll manage to include some email correspondence with your partners, any proactive messages you've gotten back from them, even minutes if they were kept from meetings you held with them. So anything you can find to trace back how you've engaged with them. But again, coming back to sometimes our main issue for all of us, which is student engagement, because we definitely want more of it, is that a key stakeholder that we'll always have to talk about, with its own criteria listed here, is students themselves. So we're just looking to see how you've engaged them in the campaign, how student-led is it, and that is not just because it makes campaigns clearly more legitimate and more engaging, but as well as because you are in a good position to help students enrich their skill set. So whether that's through organizational skills or critical thinking, that those are really valuable and direct skills improvement that they would get. So do consider that. But yeah, engaging them in all aspects of your campaign, from the setting of the aims like we were talking before to reflecting on how you've done, is really important. And it can also provide you in a more pragmatic way with some extra additional outcomes that you might want to add in other sections of the toolkit. So kind of two birds, one stone kind of a thing. So definitely to have a think from as soon as possible about how you'll be able to measure these outcomes at the start. So yeah, just finally, if you're wondering, oh, how will you assess this? What we're looking for is just evidence of how students have been both the drivers, but also the participants of your project or initiative, or whatever it is that you choose to run this year. Yes, we're looking for the numbers of students that have been engaged, but really the more qualitative impact on them or the roles they played should also be available. So like an example, we will award the maximum 10 points if students are meaningfully involved in the project planning stages, the development, and as well if a significant number of them were involved in decision making. So if we wanted to talk a little bit more about the team, if people were wondering how it is that you can organize your campaigning team, who should be included in it should definitely be a relevant question. Please, if you have any ideas for any of these questions listed on the slide, do start typing them up. If you feel like there was an unexpected sort of suspect that you didn't think to include, but they were really useful in the end, we'd really like to see you share that. Or if you found a particular useful way of dividing up the roles, that would perhaps mean more chance to build capacity for further years. So if there was a chance for the campaign to carry on and be student driven in 2019 and 2020 and just gain new ground, how was it that you already put in place from this year some sort of capacity for that?
So if two of you are looking at food waste, maybe think about the external people that are on your campus. Like, do you have like the different shops, and how are they going to tackle that issue? And look at your student union and how they're dealing with all the waste from their cafes, and just sit down, have a meeting, and then thinking about like how it's student led. You could do, so example, a little bit different, but UCL did a campaign on clothing, about how much clothing is thrown away. So they worked with an external partner called Hubba, and they got a huge big box and just filled it with clothes and put that in the centre of their campus. So all the students walking past being like, what is this big box of clothes and what does that mean?
And that's really eye-catching.
Yeah, so it has that eye-catching. It was really impactful. So then it was engaging through students by them walking past. They were talking to them, engaging with them. And that's their statistics right there. So they can say we've engaged this many people just from doing this one small little campaign. So again, you can do something similar with food. I mean, I imagine there'd be a lot of health and safety if you wanted to put a big, like, if you're doing about food waste, you might need to think about that. But thinking about how you can make it really impactful, and making sure, obviously we're going to go into monitoring and evaluating in a little bit, but how you are evaluating that and making sure you have those numbers of students about how you've engaged them. So making sure you keep that data.
But even, I suppose, if you wanted to keep on that eye-catchy, eye-grabbing concept, okay, maybe health and safety might be an issue with actual food waste, but maybe you could have some art students on campus, or just not even studying art per se, but just some creative students who would be willing to replicate that kind of food waste. So it would be maybe out of spare fabric or whatever, that it could look like a huge overflowing bin or something. So you can definitely get creative, even if the State Department might be a little bit funny about you putting a lot of banana peels on the floor. And this is just a power map example that maybe you're able to see. I realize it's quite tiny writing, but it's just to remind you that it's quite important to map out who your most influential and powerful, but also your strongest supporter, external stakeholder might be, or you might have a really big fan in, like I mentioned, the State Department before, and they would be a really good ally to have on board. So just a reminder to keep thinking about who your biggest fans are and who could help you achieve your aims. So we're kind of going through the last criteria already, and around the communications and social media criteria, we've already ran hopefully helpful webinar. They'll be able to find on the YouTube playlist. So if you want a refresher of all sorts of social media tips and other kind of tools you could use, check that out. But I'll just go quite briefly through what it is we're looking for in terms of your publicity and awareness raising. So just consider the kind of channels you'll need in order to communicate your campaign. Well before, but also during and after your main activities. So just take like a certain event or a fair. As an example, how are you going to attract a lot of people to it? Is Facebook the only way you'll be able to spread information about it? Could you be thinking quite laterally about it beyond kind of the traditional social media and newsletter channels? Who else can disseminate the information for you? How can you make student societies a partner in it, in that they will obviously have much more meaningful reach to their own members? Do you have any capacity for, I don't know, some volunteers to live tweet it for you while it's happening, so that you maintain that kind of direct engagement throughout whatever event or conference you're putting together? So yeah, I mean, consider how you communicated either to your students or across the union team, whether it's your university you're trying to reach, or national press. Is it other students' unions? Is it maybe other community groups who may find your results useful? Basically, obviously, know your audiences and try, as if it's possible, to tailor your message around who your audience is, but don't forget to let everyone know about it. Like, shout about your successes, because you don't know who it's going to be able to help further on and what ripple effect it might have. And we would really love it to see if more student unions can adopt your example, kind of like you guys have just done on this webinar alone. So that's really great. But more pragmatically, in terms of evidence, in order for us to assess the effectiveness of your comms, this can definitely be demonstrated in a lot of ways via a number of opens or views. If it's, again, social media we're talking about, if it's shares that you've gotten or retweets, basically trying to assess the reach you've had. Whether it's number of inquiries, if you've gotten a lot of emails or proposals to improve your campaign, or perhaps you have some sort of online pledge system or petition, like I said before, and all of those numbers would be really, really good for us to have a look at. So yeah, just coming back to, how could you get the maximum points for this? So if you had a really good communications plan in place for it, so again, kind of forward thinking, making sure you've traced all of your possible communication outlets, and that means also external ones to the university, so like coming back to local press. Like I said, there's lots of ideas we've shared in the previous comms webinar, so we really wouldn't go through it again. But just a reminder that people found the infograph tools quite useful. So you could definitely make a note of these websites. They've been a really good way, and you know, kind of linking to your monitoring and evaluation as well. If you've run a particular piece of research, for example, and you have really good results, but you're a little bit worried about sharing, I don't know, text-heavy information that no one will open, there's a lot of very user-friendly websites that you can use to make your your results more flashy and better looking. And so yeah, don't worry about having design skills or anything. They'll do it for you, the website. So using infographics would be a really good shout. Storify as well is a pretty cool tool, especially if you've had one certain campaign or one certain like one particular event that you've shared your information about across, I don't know, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Storify will basically, what it'll do is it'll pull all of the posts together and make it into a bit of a video. So you'll be able to share it all in one go and people can see what happened. So that's pretty neat tool to use as well. And Katie, if you wanted to add something?
Yeah, so what we did for one of our campaigns called Student Switch Off, which is where we want students in halls to reduce their energy consumption. We've run competitions to try and get students engaged with that on social media, so that's Facebook and Instagram. And this competition just gone, retrialed to make everything on brand. So you can see like the little infographics at the bottom, they're very NUS and Student Switch Off on brand because of the colours and the shapes. And we even saw, so some of the organisation we worked with on this campaign, it like increased their engagement by 100%, which was obviously fantastic. And so just wanted to share that with you, is to just make it on brand. So when if you're doing a campaign, say around food waste, if you keep all the communications looking the same, so when students or staff or anybody's looking at it, they're like, I know that what this campaign is because I've already seen it before.
It's instantly recognizable, isn't it? Yeah.
And also we actually had, so if thinking back to like how to get students involved, we had a student intern on an internship who created these graphics for us. So we had the student involvement, and obviously the skills that she's gaining through doing this for us are hopefully invaluable to her, and has really increased her skill set as well. So, and students obviously very creative, and maybe their course is about communications or marketing or graphics. So definitely getting these students involved, a bit of internship, a bit of volunteering will be invaluable to them, but then also for you to be able to have this kind of resource to help you on these kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. But also, like, just the whole Christmas tree thing reminded me that if the holidays are coming, there could definitely be something creative you could do around that. What I've seen a lot of unions do, and even we did it a bit at NUS Scotland, was they went caroling. So, I mean, they went to some student management offices. They let them know in advance, okay, we'll show up there with like a small group of students, and they passed on Christmas cards and they sang some carols, and it was all used as a chance to meet those people they would otherwise maybe have harder access to, and in a very friendly kind of in jest kind of a way actually lobby them around their campaign and what they wanted to achieve. So you could, the holiday example just sprung to mind because it's obviously relevant right now, but you could definitely always time it around certain specific events that you could kind of almost free ride on and use it to make it relevant to your campaign. It keeps things fresh, it keeps things a bit exciting as well, and gives you a chance to spread out a little bit more. Yeah, think about carols, they're very good. Okay, so this will be pretty much the last thing before we go on to sharing examples and things. I don't know if anyone has anything to add or any questions so far, or any ideas that you found really quirky, like in terms of engaging, or in a creative way. Also doing all sorts of comms, thinking outside the box. Definitely type them down in the comment box because it'll be really helpful for other people to I don't know, how do you go around saying steal your ideas? Yeah, share best practice. So Tom is telling us they used an Instagram poll for our live event feedback. An Instagram poll, I didn't even know that is a thing.
No, so I don't need to do it on Facebook.
Yeah, I thought it was a Facebook. Thanks, Tom. That is very good. We will put it in our next webinar. So let us know further on how it works, Tom, because we'll be keen to find out. We can definitely use it in some of the things we run. Okay, so they only just came out. Well, exactly. Tom is already on brand. He keeps relevant. So yeah, do keep sharing other quirky things you've tried before. And we'll just talk about everyone's favorite bit, which is monitoring and evaluation. We all love it. So just because it genuinely has so much weight attached to it in terms of the points you'll be able to receive for it, you will want to start thinking about how you'll evaluate your progress as soon as possible. Hopefully you've already done this, but obviously it's not too late, but definitely keep that in mind for every single step along the way, because this is not just something you want to do at the end. It's just a progress you want to measure along the way. So again, in terms of some questions you might want to ask yourself, what has the progress been? How have you gotten on in relation to your aims? Is there anything else you need to do at this particular point if you're having say a mid-term review or a mid-year review? So if you were to reflect on the initial aims and milestones, how have you met them so far? Are you halfway there? Are you a quarter of the way there? What impact have you had? And really think about the unexpected impact as well, because it might be that you had a really pleasant surprise and 3 student societies went out of their way to want to join you, and that's a really good impact that you couldn't have possibly predicted. But give yourself a pat on the back if those kind of things happen. And how have you managed to record this is definitely a crucial question, and we're really looking forward to people sharing with each other what they found to be most, the easiest way or the most useful way of keeping a record of the progress so far. And again, coming back to a kind of capacity building for follow-ups on your campaign, just ask yourself the question of, will your campaign carry on in the next academic year? So maybe not under your particular eyes, but will there be some student volunteers who might want to carry it forward? Like, what's the legacy of it? So in terms of do you want to add something?
I was just thinking maybe that point goes back to Tom's point about where they did a campaign last year, and I wonder if they can continue. I think maybe if you, in your evidence, if you can reflect on what you did last year, Tom, and put in about like what went well, and then if you do it again this year, maybe the things which didn't go so well. So in your monitoring evaluation, you can say, yes, this didn't have the impact that we wanted, and this is what we're going to do this year instead. So even though it is the same campaign, that you can show that you've grown, that you've acknowledged that things that went and didn't go so well, how you've improved student engagement with it. So definitely you can continue, but how you're going to grow and make it bigger and better from last year.
I would say so, definitely. I mean, the whole point of GSU would be to for you to have an opportunity to reflect on what's been going well, but what you could improve on. And if that gives you a chance to actually run a successful campaign this year, then we're more than happy to accept that, as long as it has really good aims and it's something that shows an added value, if that makes sense, compared to last year's attempts. So as long as you can prove to us that there's been a lot of progress and there's been a lot of added value, then we're happy with it. Hopefully that helps you, Tom. And as well, in terms of the evidence we're looking for, just some ideas of how it can be presented to us could be as a short report or a video roundup, or perhaps you publish a case study. So we're looking for really quantifiable impact. So the more you can give us in terms of numbers and quotes and things like that from your volunteers, for example, would be really helpful to build up on. So for example, you'll notice criteria number 6, which is on progress and impact, weighs up to 30 points, which is quite a lot. And you can definitely get them if you submit a thorough update of your aims, which is presented in a hopefully like in an engaging way, with the project that's complete or almost complete, again, within reasonable expectations. And yeah, just really briefly, finally, this is about your own learnings of the process. So kind of like we just talked about, you reviewing what you've done previously, what went well, what went wrong, what did you learn from it? Because really, in general, auditors will look for a variety of both positive and negative learning. So don't shy away from sharing some of the things that went wrong, because we are really looking for you to be honest with yourself, because it will definitely just help you when you run, say, GSU next year, to follow through with that review. And yeah, just let us know of any changes in approach for your future campaigns, if that's what your reflection highlighted. So that's about it for running through the criteria. Got something that Katie wants to point out to Tom?
I just wanted to say, from the audits last year, I think this is where a lot of the unions that I audited really lost a lot of points on, because like you ran these like really amazing campaigns and it was really great, but then you can show us like what the impact that had. So I really think this is where like a lot of people kind of lose their points a little bit. So whether it's like if you're running something on social media, like Facebook have really great insights now, so you can just pull off the graphs on there, so you can show us that your engagement on Facebook has gone up during the time of your campaign, or like your insights on Twitter, or like you've had more like people follow your page, or just little things like that. They all add up to show that you've had an impact on the students. So I really think this is something that you really need to like definitely have in the bag to get like really high points available, and not just like we ran this campaign and we had like 100 students involved. It needs to be a bit more than that. You need to like, whether it's like the survey data or like the quotes and stuff that you said, like how students, what they got from this campaign, or like if it's something to do with food waste, like you want your halls to include food waste bins in their like waste process, something like that. Obviously that's like an end point, but then how that's impacted on like the recycling, all that kind of things needs to be thought about too.
And from a practical point of view, with that example with the food bins, or any increase in like recycling segregation or anything like that, that is quite easy data to be able to obtain from your administrative and the state departments if you collaborate with them well in advance. So they will be able to track exactly how much they send to landfill or how much they started sending to food waste recycling. So that's again coming back to the cycle of this and how every campaign is a cycle. That's why we put so much importance on working with your stakeholders, because when it comes to evaluating how you've done, they will be key to you submitting evidence. So that would be another example of how you can measure your impact. But yeah, I would definitely echo Katie's feelings about this being a quite difficult section, but this is also like one of the reasons why the toolkit has been so changed over the past 2 years, that we really want to help you guys measure your impacts better and to prove that there's a lot of advantages to that. So more than happy to support everyone as much as possible in this section, because we realize it is tricky, but in the end it will be really useful. So Katie will share with you guys some more ideas in the comment section, and I'll move on the next 10 minutes and between us, and we'll tell you about some examples that we found to be really, really successful in last year's submissions, and also, like we said, some NUS campaigns. So a lot of unions, for example, have run a lot of like awareness raising and very general sustainability related events for a sustained amount of time. So some have done it as a Go Green Week, or some have done a whole Fair Trade Month. And there's a lot of varying degrees to this. However, what I think has been the most successful in this concept has been putting in as many meetings with different student societies and different local groups in the diary as possible to get them to just switch around their usual events for that 1 week. So whether it's, I don't know, the baking society for that 1 week, doing a lot more plant-based options, or teaching people how to cook without having lots of food waste, or using more local ingredients, like that is a really interesting way of adapting someone's activities, and a pretty good way of increasing your own engagement really outside of your normal bubbles. So this is something that has been quite popular in the past as a submission for a campaign. This is an example that I like to use from Sterling because it's been quite an unexpected stellar success. And it just really all started when they were doing a redevelopment of some of their student spaces, and they had really good evidence through a survey that they had run over the summer and autumn months of students being in a real need for more sustainable food options on campus. So a lot of them having dietary requirements or wanting to eat more sustainably, more locally, more plant-based, for example, that they really needed more spaces. So they managed to turn a whole student cafeteria, which is called the Venue, into a veggie and vegan only outlet, which is in itself quite great. But what happened then was actually their footfall increased so much, so much more than it used to be before. And the options are quite fun. I mean, obviously everyone is welcome, but it just kind of proved that these kind of initiatives can be really successful. So Sterling have done quite well on that. A lot of the campaigns last year, and I suppose this will be a recurring theme this year too, and we'll talk about our own coffee cup waste campaign as well, but they're around like ditching some disposables. So for example, one of the kind of successful ways about reducing plastic bottle waste or coffee cup waste would be, obviously normally people would give discounts if you brought in your own reusable cup, but what King's College KCL did was to actually apply a charge to each of the non-recyclable coffee cups that they would serve on campus. So it is actually a bit more of a stick than a carrot method, but in terms of its efficiency and in terms of measurable outcomes, it was very, very effective. So that could be just a way of just proving that thinking outside the box could be valuable. So a campaign that was run at Christchurch that I think we've talked about quite a bit, like at the Sustainability Summit as well in previous webinars, because it's just been so popular, was one that Christchurch SU ran, because it was just such a fab example of engaging with other student unions, because they had this little polar bear mascot sent by the WWF, and then they had a very successful few events on their own campus, but then they took the mascot and some of their volunteers on tour to other student unions. It wasn't just all around Earth Hour and explaining all the activities that you could run around Earth Hour, but rather like a broader energy saving campaign. But it was a really interesting, successful example of how you can collaborate with other student unions and how those examples can be shared. This is something that I've mentioned before, because I think, was it Mariam? You were saying you wanted to run a paperless campaign. So this is an example from Glasgow Caledonian University. So their students association ran something called Click It to Submit It, to run just paperless assessment submissions. And it was really successful within one academic year, really, but it took quite a bit of initial research. So they had to run quite extensive survey that luckily a lot of their students were quite on board with. So they helped promote it, and they ran a petition. They went through a lot of stages. Like, it's, again, the reason I put this in is because it's a really good example of how one campaign can achieve so much in 1 year. And yes, there were a lot of challenges along the way, a lot of both academic and administrative staff who felt maybe uncomfortable with the change, but in the greater context, it really worked out in the end. So well done. And yeah, again, happy to share the contacts from GCU if you want to hear how they've done it. And hopefully maybe Katie can help me with some of the last bits of some of the things we're currently doing that you could hop on board with.
Yeah, so we did we're still doing the Last Straw campaign. So this is about trying to reduce single-use plastics. I mean, that's been in the media so much over these last few months as well. Especially if you watch Blue Planet, like, it's really depressing to see all the plastics in the ocean. So we kind of, again, if you're thinking about making it relevant, we sort of jumped on the back of that because we saw that it was in the media so much. So we thought this is the time to kind of launch a campaign around this. It was really successful. So we just did it all online. We asked people to sign up to say that their SU was going to try and reduce it. It's students as well, saying they're pledging to reduce their straw usage. I know that Sheffield came to our Student Sustainability Summit and said that's something that they're trying to do as well, like engage like Starbucks and different outlets about asking them to reduce the amount of straws they're giving out. So rather than giving it to the people, asking them to request the straws. So that was just through social media. Again, it's very on brand. And I think about 500 pledges so far, I think. So it's going, that's just a really, really simple thing that we've done. But again, it's had a really, really high impact. And maybe you guys want to get involved in this one as well.
This is something that we've put in because obviously some of you might know that we have some staff members here at NUS that can help you run these kind of campaigns. So we have a divestment consultant. There's already a lot of divest, invest examples that we've seen in the submissions from last year's GSU. So it's just an invitation to approach us if you feel like there's been a demand for this on your campus that you want to take forward as part of your submission, because we can help you with things like freedom of information requests, workshops that we can come and run on your campus. So there's quite a bit of resource that we can put at your disposal if you decide to run this because of our staff time. So it's just something to make you aware of that you can get help with.
And Mariam, this might be one that you might want to get involved as well, thinking of like reducing single-use coffee cups. Again, I think this was mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, that it was mentioned in Parliament how they're going to start looking at single-use plastics. So again, it's really relevant. And it was in our manifesto from our Vice President to do a campaign around coffee cups, because that's been requested by the students. That is really important to them, that they see all these coffee cups which you can't recycle. So we're running a campaign. We are just starting off with 5 trial SUs who are going to see what's the best approach for them. So whether that's adding like a charge, so rather than saying you get 25p off, kind of like what King's College did, you then actually charge 25p if you don't use a recyclable cup or like a reusable cup. Whether it's using like a reuse scheme, so you use the coffee cup, then you give it back, it's washed and another student uses it. So those different approaches that we're going to trial at different student unions, and then the full campaign is going to be launched in March. So if you're thinking about something that you want to trial at your SU, and something that you want help with, so in March the full campaign is going to be launched, and we'd definitely like to hear from you if you would like to try and reduce coffee cups on your campus as well. So we've got definitely a lot of support from our end too, if this is the campaign that you want to run this year or maybe even next year.
Yeah, so there's just some examples of things we can well, it's not an exhaustive list at all, but it's just some of the things that we're running at NUS currently, and you're more than welcome to get involved with. That's really all that we had planned for today. We have only 2 minutes to spare anyways, but just a final shout out to please let us know if you have any questions that just came out of that long list of ideas, and you could definitely get them, so they're just on here, so just pop me an email as my first email there, and I'll be happy to share with you the GCU contacts, and yeah, like a lot of you have already told us what you're planning to do this year. So thank you very much for participating and for interacting with us a little bit. But if you had any more worries or concerns at all about like some specific criteria, you also obviously have the GSU email. Maybe you can leave them in the comments. You also always have the GSU email that you can reach us at, and we'll just write it here for you in a sec. But yeah, that's really it from us. Any final thoughts? Any final additions from anyone here on the chat? Did you find that useful? Was there something that you feel like hasn't been covered that we can sent to you in a bit of a wrap up, kind of like a frequently asked questions kind of a thing. Because I always say as a final thought, definitely run as much research as you can. What else? Enjoy running the campaign because it can be very, very fun, and it can be a really good opportunity to increase your engagement with students beyond your usual suspects. Pat yourself on the backs when you've had even a little bit of success, because campaigns can be really emotionally exhausting sometimes. So take grasp of every single success and brag about them. And obviously, good luck. And please just always get in touch with us if you need a little bit of support or if you're wondering about something. And thank you very much for joining us on the call today. We'll make all of the other resources available as well, and we'll share them with you. Thanks, everyone. I'm sending you a little wave. You can't see it, but it's there. Bye.
I think we're just gonna wait for 2 more people.
Oh, they're typing. Some people are typing. Thanks, Tom and Mariam and David and Ellie. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.